Welcome in to the Four Verticals Podcast, episode 181 for May 14th, 2026. High atop a warm, partly cloudy Jacksonville, Florida. Speaking of the weather, I mean, you got some. If you're listening to us in like the mid plains or any of those areas around the country, Nebraska, Oklahoma, got some severe weather coming up. A lot of big storms on the way this weekend. I think starting this weekend into early next week. So for those of you living out there, and again, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, going to be a very active period for severe weather. Here in Florida, at least for the next week or so, finally drying out after some beneficial rain. But of course, I had a big show for you guys today. Got a lot of topics to discuss. We have a Big 10 head coaching grades. Got a couple of names on. We got a few names on here. Not every single coach on here, but we got most of the big names, I think. Most of the big names we do have on there for the coaching grades. We have Penn State's record projection, 2026. We have a Big 10 themed show here. Hey, look, you can't accuse us of SEC bias because we're barely talking about them. And then afterwards, we'll talk about college football playoff expansion, some things to discuss towards the very end. If you're new here, of course, we do this show twice a week here on YouTube and on Spotify. By the way, Spotify, we'll get that cleared up. We haven't been able to upload the episodes yet. We'll do that later today. Both episodes, so be on the lookout for that. Apologies for that. But yeah, we do the show twice a week here on YouTube and on Spotify. YouTube, we go live around this time of the day, around 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock-ish, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, per usual. And we also go live, we also on Spotify as well. It's not live on Spotify, but we do post the shows after at some point throughout the week. So be on the lookout for that. Now, in terms of the extra pod, we should be able to do it tomorrow. I think we should be able to do it tomorrow. Not 100% sure about that, but I feel good enough that we should be able to do it probably a bit later in the afternoon, but I think we should be okay for the most part. So just be on the lookout for that, the extra pod. If not, we'll just have to do it next week, which, by the way, again, a little bit of a housekeeping note. We'll not have any live shows week after Memorial Day. So that week of Memorial Day, we'll have no live shows. We'll have pre-recorded shows. I'll try to get those done next week. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Probably not. We have to do it next week. So next week will be the last week of normal live shows. Then we'll have try to get some pre-recorded shows. If not, we'll just have no shows that week. But the goal was to get something, at least one show recorded by then for you guys to watch and divulge that week. Then we'll be back to hopefully normal schedule for the most part. So then we have 4th of July, but that's a whole other issue as well. So for sure, 2 weeks, 2 full weeks, we're going to have a little bit of weirdness going on, but I think it'll be okay for the most part in terms of having enough content out there and things like that. So should be good enough to go. So again, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Helps us out. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast feed and follow us on X, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. So with all of that housekeeping stuff out of the way, if you can go ahead and get started up the actual show. Again, we have a Big 10 themed show today. Again, can't accuse us of being Big 10 or anti-Big 10 or pro-SEC. So I'm going to get some water real quick. We'll go ahead and get started. Big 10 head coaching grades. We did the ACC last show, Tuesday. Now we're moving on to the Big 10. So as we do that, let me get on and get our graphic set up here on YouTube. Of course, on Spotify, you'll have to imagine. I'll probably post all these graphics here at some point in the near future on X and on Instagram. Probably, I just haven't done it yet. So let me enter in here and put in the graphic. So stand by. Oops, wrong one. That's coming up later with the Penn State schedule here. Let me fix that. Nope, that's Penn State as well. It's a bit of a spoiler, I guess, for those of you who are live on YouTube. Should have labeled these a little bit better. No, I don't want that either. Stand by, folks, if you're listening on YouTube. Oh, that one either. Hold on a minute, guys. Apologies for this. I thought I labeled these correctly. Maybe I did not. Is it this one? That is the coaching grades. Penn State again. Again, I guess you guys are get to see that. Maybe we'll try this. Jeez, I thought it'll be a little bit easier, but oh well. Okay, here's the Big Ten coaching grades. All right, that took longer than I thought I was going to, but that's okay. So let me move this over. Okay, so Big Ten head coaching grades. We did the ACC again. Every day we're doing Big Ten this time here on YouTube. So first up here is, of course, Ryan Day gets an A+. He won the national championship. Has done everything besides even before the national title, he would have gone an A+. And a lot of folks, up to including some NFL personalities and types who wanted Ryan Day fired. And if you've been listening to me for a long time, know that they are Shannon Sharp. Wanted Ryan Day fired for no particular reason why. He didn't win the national title. Again, ring culture is, infecting college football is a sad thing to see, even though some of these coaches are very good. But because of the NFLification of college football, coming from someone who likes the NFL, cheers for a team in the NFL, I don't like the fact that we are getting ring culture in here. But anyway, regardless of Ryan Day winning a national title or not, he deserves an A+. Okay, that one's pretty simple to explain. Next up here, Kirk Ferentz. Talked about him on the Extra Pod last week. Kirk Ferentz deserves an A, not an A+, but an A-. The A-, look, I could have been told a total asshole and just put Kirk Ferentz at a B+, because I'm not a big fan of his style of offense. Though I mentioned before, like on the Extra Pod last week, that I do respect him just for the fact that he is the model of consistency, okay? Sort of like Mike Gundy before last year and the last few years at Oklahoma State. He was the model of consistency at Oklahoma in the Big 12. Kirk Ferentz is that in the Big 10, right? He's the longest tenured coach in actually all of college football, I believe, especially in FBS, and he's also the highest tenured coach in the Big 10, obviously. So he is the model of consistency. Again, he's A- because of his offense. I'm not a big fan of. Has it, gotten better a little bit? Sure, but it's not really that much different from what he's been running his entire career. So, yes, model consistency, crap offense. He deserves an A-. And also another reason why the A- is there is because, yes, he is. He has been known to put in. Iowa's the tight end offensive lineman factory for the NFL. So I'll give him an A- just to be nice. Could have gone a B+, but we'll go the A- route. So though the top two, actually, I have a real order here, but the top two, the first two are pretty simple. The next one, Brett Bielema, B-. A little bit interesting here. And again, by the way, we are doing only the longest tenured coaches, so none of the new guys. Were, like, for example, Matt Campbell wouldn't be on here because he's only been in the Big Ten. Like, he only just got there 10 minutes ago. So he is not included on here, nor is Pat Fitzgerald. And I think that's it for the Big Ten in terms of coaching changes besides UCLA. So those three schools, we're not touching those coaches, okay? So that one's pretty simple. And also, I believe Michael Hawks is not on here either. I probably would have given him a B+, or actually, I'd probably a C+, probably, Michael Oxley, but we didn't put him on here, but we will mention him as an honorable mention. But again, none of the new coaches will be on here for obvious reasons. So Brett Bielema, B+ or B-. I think that's probably fair. Given, yes, it is the Illinois, and they are mostly a historical basketball school. And actually, another name I forgot to put on here is Kirk Cinetti. I just realized that. Wow, I totally forgot that. So, apologies to Coach Sig. Yes, he deserves an A+. I think that's kind of obvious one too. So, apologies to Coach Cinetti. He deserves an A+. I should probably, I'll make a new graphic of this and post it on X. But yes, if you're watching the show, if you're listening to it on Spotify, doesn't matter because you can't see the graphic. But yes, on YouTube, I left out Kirk Cinetti because he just won the national title, and also I totally forgot. So apologies to Coach Sig. Don't get mad at me. It was an honest mistake. Okay, he's so special we didn't put him on here. So that there's the unofficial excuse. The official excuse, we forgot him. I totally forgot to put him on here. But yes, Coach Sig and Michael Oxen are on here. Coach Sig obviously deserves an A+, clearly. Anyway, moving off of that, it's Brett Bielema, B- again, in a historical basketball school. He has done good enough there. He was in the Big Ten previously at Wisconsin. B minus. I think that's probably fair. PJ Fleck, A minus. I'll say he is sort of the somewhat the model of consistency there. I know a couple years ago they did the whole sort of like Pat Fitzgerald, the whole hazing thing. Wasn't brought up nationally, but I believe like Josh Pate talked about it and some others brought it up years ago. That didn't go anywhere, unlike the Pat Fitzgerald thing, when it ended up, that ended up being nothing, according to the investigation and the court stuff. So PJ Fleck, A minus, sort of that new school model of consistency. Just did a good job there, very solid. He has had coaching offers over the years. He has not taken any of those. He has stayed at Minnesota. I give him credit for that. Next up on the list here, Dane Lanning, A plus. So we're sort of like Ryan Day a little bit, just without the national title. Again, I know a lot of folks are going to transfer what they said about Ryan Day to Dane Lanning. The Shannon Sharps of the world are going to say, "Oh, Dane Lanning hasn't won the national title, so got to fire him." But I don't know what to say. Like, do you want everyone to win a national title, and you want these people, these coaches, to do the literal impossible to like have everyone win the national title? Like, is that the way you want to go? Like, okay. So yeah, to all the Shannon Sharps of the world, yes, Dane Lanning deserves an A plus. I don't know what you wanted to say. Obviously, you don't pay attention to college ball. You're only an NFL fan. I get that. You cover the NFL more than I do, but whatever. Dane Lanning, self-explanatory, A plus. Jeff Fish, B plus. Done a solid job there at Washington. Yes, he has taken over for Kalen DeBoer, who did a fantastic job there. Albeit, yes, it was 2 years, but Jeff Fish, solid B plus. This next one here, Luke Fickell, D minus. Disappointed for sure. That can be what the D stands for. Disappointing. Thought he'll do better there, but he has not. Struggled. Yes, Wisconsin, they're no longer in the Big Ten West, and the divisions back then, as of a few years ago, were disproportionately in favor or out of whack. They're definitely there was no balance. It was actually unbalanced. Yeah, the East was so powerful, and you had the West, who was basically the sacrificial lamb to go to Indianapolis and go get destroyed by the Big Ten East opponent. So because of that, and the rule changes with the NIL, transfer portal, it just Fickell, I feel like, came in at the wrong place, wrong time. If this was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, back when they had divisions and it was uneven, I think this is going to be a lot better. I think Luke Fickell would not be on the hot seat, but unfortunately, he is in the hottest of hot seats besides Mike Norvell, I think. Rightfully so. Not the Shannon Sharps of the world who think Ryan Day and Dane Lanning belong in the hot seat, which is obviously not true, especially back with Ryan Day a few years ago. And obviously, folks are not doing it to like Dane Lanning now because he hasn't won the national title yet. But I digress. So Luke Fickell deserves a low grade here. Lincoln Riley, B plus. Pretty solid. I think we are starting to see things turn around there. Obviously, this year is a huge year for him, given the expectations and how they have been building to this year. I think him getting a B plus. Again, this includes their time in the Pac-12 too. So for a lot of these guys, it encompasses a whole lot. Entire coaching tenure at their current school. So Lincoln Riley, B plus. Pretty simple there. You have the ups, you have some downs, you have some ups now. So Lincoln Riley, B plus. And then finally here, Matt Rule, going to Danny Cannell, C plus. Fine. I guess there's some weirdness here with Matt Rule because he did, there was a whole will he won't he leave for Penn State. He decides not to. I don't know. Just with Matt Rule, I think it is interesting to see is, as Josh Pate calls it, the rule, year 3. Didn't happen last year. So is it year 4 this year, or is it year 3 this year? I don't. Time is a flat circle, as they say. So, is Matt Rule the step up? Is it this year? Did they take that next step up? Did they take another leap? Right? They bring in Anthony Colandrea to come in and be the quarterback. So you got some. You got yourself a poor man's Bo Nix, I guess. The Whoopsie Daisy King a few years ago. Tom Fornelli reference there. So you have him coming again. You lose Dylan Raiola to the transfer portal. So, I mean, look, real statement. You have Daniel Holgerson back as the OC again. So, I don't know. Matt Rule is kind of a funny one here. That one, I could easily see someone saying he's a B+. I can easily see someone saying he's a little bit lower. But given where Nebraska was before him, I think of C+ is probably fair. Okay. So yeah, Big Ten coaching grades minus Mike Locksley and Kirk Cignetti. Sorry guys, totally forgot. Especially Coach Sig. I think Locksley. I don't think anyone's really noticed. But yeah, we'll do a new graphic on this later, and we'll put Coach Sig on there, and we'll fix it. We'll put it on Twitter. Apologies for that, Coach, for listening. Hey, look, at least I had you guys in the top 25. God forbid I forgot that. So yeah, the Coach Cignetti or Kurt Cignetti less Big Ten coaching rankings. Yeah, how about that? Oh well, it is what it is. It happens to all of us. We have a tendency to forget. So yes, we put this graphic on X down the road here. Probably later I'll put out the ACC one as well. I'll be sure to remember to put Coach Cignetti. I'll be sure to edit that somehow, some way. So anyway, yeah, the coaching grades for the Big Ten minus Coach Cignetti and Mike Locksley. And those two were an accident. Again, just to be clear, the other names on here are first year guys, so those don't really count. That'll be their own segment probably do first year coaching grades, I guess, before the season, I guess, something like that, sort of like that. So yeah, just keep an eye on that. We'll put that graphic on there and fix that for Twitter later, X later. But how that happened. Look, forgetting Mike Locksley, I can understand that because it is Maryland. But Coach Sig, how in the world you forget that? But yeah, Coach Sig, obviously an A+. That's pretty clear. Pretty obvious there. So more drink of water here. We'll move merrily right along. Again, if you guys are listening here on Spotify or listening live on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. I was saying if there's a lot more ice in my water, there's still some. I thought there was. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in on Spotify or on YouTube Live, of course. The show's not over yet. We still have a little bit of ways to go here. We'll probably have around a 40-minute show, probably, if by the way the crow flies. So there's that. So again, as we are sort of in the midpoint range here, again, be sure to subscribe to the podcast feed and on YouTube, of course, obviously. Spotify, of course, we will have our extra pod tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. We got a lot of news there, some questions for sure, a lot of things happening outside of college football. Of course, the Bucs schedule will be officially released today. There are some, of course, the quote-unquote leaks, although they're not really leaks. They're being revealed a bit earlier than usual, and of course, they'll get the official schedule reveal later, confirmed by the organization. But yeah, I think most of the Bucs schedule's been out there now, common knowledge, and they play the Bengals week 1 on the road. Oh well, it happens. Happens sometimes. Not the first time I've rodeoed having a away game being our first game. It happened just recently, and a lot of folks don't like that. But this is the NFL. It's going to happen eventually once you start becoming a fan. I've been a fan for over 10 years, so I've been used to it. But yeah, we'll cover that tomorrow. Now on the extra pod, get my thoughts on that and the way the schedule is handled. Be interesting to see when the bye week is, as typical like those bye weeks later in the year, not in the beginning of the year. We had that a couple years ago, I believe. I believe in Tom Brady's last year, we had a weird bye week early in the year. But anyway, we'll cover that tomorrow on the extra pod, and along with other news as well. Any questions you guys may have or topics. Let's see here. Record projection. Penn State. All right, now let's go back to the graphics here, and let's see, get the first one ready. We'll get to the second one in a moment here. I guess, could we do both at the same time? I guess we could do that. Actually, no, I guess we couldn't really do that. So let me see. Get this graphic pulled up here real quick, and then we'll go and get started. Well, actually, I guess we can enter it in now. Do the intro, and then we'll do that. Let's see here. Okay, this is the right one we're entering in here. Okay. Penn State Team Record Projection Series. We've been doing this for the past few weeks. We started it back a couple weeks ago now, I believe. But yeah, we've been moving along. We've done mostly ACC. We did LSU. We've done North Carolina. We've done Florida State. Now we are doing the Big Ten. Now again, this is not we're not doing this on purpose to have a Big Ten featured show, but that's just how the way it turned out. So yes, we are doing a Big Ten themed show. So we did Big Ten coach rankings, and now we're doing a Big Ten school for the team record projections. So we'll bring up Penn State's schedule here. Of course, Matt Campbell first year on the job, bringing in like 90% of the Penn State or the Iowa State roster coming over. So there is that. Here's the schedule for those of you who are on YouTube, and let me go to my phone here and I can see how it looks on my phone. With the graphic, it is loading. For those of you on YouTube, so there we go. You guys can see a little bit better here. So for those of you who are listening to me on Spotify, I'll read this out to you. So again, yes, Matt Campbell first year, they have a whole new roster. Again, like 95% of the roster is from Iowa State. Okay. So you have Rocco Beck at quarterback. I believe most of the receivers are there from Iowa State. Running back room, again, you lose your two running backs in the past few years. We needed to see what happens there. But as long as he has as long as you have Rocco Beck, and as long as you don't have any major injuries of your positions, I think you should be okay. I think as you can tell from the schedule, as I point over here on YouTube, this schedule has a lot of runway for you guys to, even if things go bumpy, okay, even if things don't go swimmingly well. Let's just say, you play Marshall, you go to Temple, which is, I believe, is that a rivalry game, unofficial rivalry game in state school, So, if you schedule, you have the first half of the schedule, you play Marshall, you look probably okay against them. You play Temple. It's on the road. It's in Philadelphia. It's in the Eagles Stadium. It's, kind of a weird schedule. It's a semi-rivalry game, in-state G5 team. You may struggle in that game. The last time you guys went there, I believe 10 to 11 years ago with James Franklin, you guys lose to Matt Rule, ironically. So that's happened before. It can happen again. Just don't lose to Temple and you'll be fine. But even if you struggle, not too surprising. So even if you do struggle, I don't think you're going to lose any of these games until USC, right? So you have Marshall at Temple. You go to or you come back to play Buffalo, who's, it's not the Buffalo Bills, but it is Buffalo. Then you get Wisconsin. It's at home, thankfully. So you don't have to go on the road there. Then Northwestern, yes, it is the new field, the new Orion field there. So it's not the old one. It's the new stadium. So there's that. I believe that's on a Friday, I believe. Yeah, it's on a Friday on Fox. So who knows what could happen there? I don't think you'd lose to them. So generally, you should start 5-0. Then it gets real in a hurry. Okay, you get USC at home again. Much like last year with the Oregon game, there are some scheduling dynamics here. You are the home team, West Coast team traveling. I've never been a big fan of that. I've been listening to the show for a very long time. So there is, a real chance you could win that game. You can even be favored in that game too. So there's certainly a good chance you could be favored in that game too. Okay. And then it gets really real when you go to Michigan, and then you're probably going to lose that game, if I had to guess. Then you get Purdue. Nothing against Barry Odom. You should win that game, I believe. So at this point, and then the Purdue game is on October, by the way. So you have USC and Michigan. Those are games that you're either going to be probably a slight dog against USC. At least I'd imagine. I don't think FanDuel has those lines after that game. At least that's this far out. Maybe in the future they will. But the USC game, you should be favored. I think you'll be a very slight favorite. But either way, worst case scenario, it's a pick 'em. See, so up until that game, or up until October 10th, from the game against Marshall to Northwestern, you should be a favorite. You should be, at least I'm imagining 5-0. Then you get to USC, Michigan. Either you're a very slight favorite or you're a pick 'em. With USC, Michigan, you're probably going to be a dog. Then you have Washington on the road. Again, this is the reverse of the USC conundrum, right? It's East Coast team. I mean, Penn State's sort of East Coast. No, it's not. You're not technically, Pennsylvania is not the bordering state of the Atlantic Ocean, but it's close enough, right? I mean, like New Jersey's basically Pennsylvania, and it's not much of a difference there. Trust me, I've been to Philadelphia before, so I understand the whole thing there. But anyway, so Eastern-based team going to a West Coast team late in the year. Again, who knows where Washington is at that point? If the DeMond Williams stuff from back in December, January, if that's, that team's still there, from a leadership standpoint, who knows? But again, it is a travel dynamic that does favor the home team in Washington. So that's a game you could be a dog in potentially. And then it levels off a little bit. Okay, you get Minnesota at home, thankfully, in the rivalry game there. Then you get Rutgers, and then you end at Maryland for that rivalry game there as well. So out of all these games, they're going to be either a slight favorite or a pick 'em, or just a flat out dog. And only 3 games, I think: USC, Michigan, and Washington. That's it. Besides that, I mean, look, you could struggle at Temple. I don't think you lose to Temple. You could struggle against Northwestern. I don't think you're going to lose to Northwestern. Northwestern could be could be a trap game. The fact it is before USC, yes. I'm sure when we do our upset alert segment, that could be in the Cody Yellow. If you guys don't weren't here last year, when we do our upset alert segment, it's sort of like a traffic light. So we have code green, yellow, and red. Yellow is sort of like we're watching this game, we're paying attention. Green is we don't think the upset's going to happen, more than likely. Though folks will say it could happen, but we don't think so. Then red means the upset's going to happen, right? So that one, at this point, probably would say, looking forward, probably it's going to be in the yellow category, I think. But anyway, the 3 games for your season, if you're Penn State and you're Matt Campbell, are USC, at Michigan, and at Washington. That's it. If you want to go even, if you want to take away the Washington game, you could say USC, Michigan. Those 2 weeks in October 10th and October 17th. So that's not out of the realm possibility. You could look at your season either in a 3-year or not 3-year, a 3-game season or a 2-game season. Now, as for the record projection, again, a lot of this has to hinge on: is there any year 1 bumps with Matt Campbell? Again, despite the fact you have a very, very favorable schedule, so the schedule does favor you, or it's a very friendly schedule. In fact, out of all the teams in the P4 Power 2, this is the most manageable schedule. Maybe Florida is up there as well. Like I think that's probably the SEC comparison to this. But I kind of look at Penn State being a wrong graphic there. I think Penn State's schedule is very friendly. And I think if you're a Penn State fan, well, yes, you may have some reservations with Matt Campbell. I don't know why you would, because I think Matt Campbell's an absolute rock star when it comes to like all the coaching hires they made, last year. I think it goes to say, I think the schedule works out for you guys, even if the worst case scenario happens here. Which here's the graphic, by the way, and I'll move it over on YouTube so you guys can see it. I think it's loading up for you guys. Should be up right now. I'm looking at it on my phone, it's delayed. So anyway, so the best case scenario for Penn State, I think it's 10-2. I think it's a real possibility you could beat USC. As a Lincoln Riley fan, contrary to what the coach grade I just gave him back in the previous segment, I don't have much joy in saying that. So I think the best case scenario, 10-2, not a real possibility. Worst case scenario, that one's, again, sort of like we just talked about with Lane Kiffin. It's the whole year 1 conundrum, right? It's okay. Yes, you have all this hype. The schedule is very workable. Bring in, like 95% of Iowa State's talent is going to State College or is in State College now. Well, that's true. And yes, you kind of upgraded that quarterback. It is still year 1. And a lot of weird things can happen in year 1, okay? Go ask, again, like I mentioned on Tuesday, go ask Kirby Smart. Go ask Nick Saban. Go ask, guys like Lincoln Riley, even at Oklahoma. Kind of, even though he inherited a pretty good team. Even go ask someone like Ryan Day, right? So a lot of these coaches, or Steve Sarkisian too, another one. Dane Lanning as well. His first game at Oregon was getting totally, embarrassed, getting essentially, getting humiliated on national TV against Georgia and Atlanta. So a lot of weird things can happen in year 1. So obviously, if you look at the schedule again, I mean, look, I'm not saying you're going to lose to Temple, but I mean, look, if it happens, it happens. I would be surprised by it. But again, as I've been, as I said about Lane Kiffin yesterday when we did, or not yesterday, on Tuesday, it's year 1, okay? So a lot of weird things could happen. So the worst case scenario for Penn State, again, it may sound very dramatic, but it is 7-5. Again, you have some of these teams on here. You can look up the schedule again. Washington, USC, Michigan are clearly the ones I think you guys could lose to. But then there's other teams, right? You have Wisconsin. Maybe Wisconsin's the better than you think they are. It's not likely, but it's certainly possible. You also have Minnesota. You also have Maryland, and to end the year, right? And who knows? Maybe if this team starts to fall apart, and although that's very unlikely, at least in my opinion, knowing who Matt Campbell is, I don't know personally, but just hearing from interviews and from other people's accounts, he seems like someone that I just don't think would let a season fall apart. Look, it could happen. It's the could versus or it's the what does Josh Pate say? It's the cannot versus have not. It's just maybe it's a situation with Matt Campbell. It just has not happened yet, where he's had a season go off the rails. Okay, so the worst case scenario is 7-5. Most reasonable, in my opinion, 9-3. Now, again, because you are in the Big Ten, because you are you have that sticker on your helmet, and with the playoff, a 9-3 Penn State with maybe somehow you beat either USC or Michigan, or you just lose all of those 2 games I just mentioned, USC, Michigan, and Washington. Even with those losses, if they're very, very competitive, I think there's a real possibility you could be in the playoff. Now, I know a lot of folks in the SEC are going to go like, what the hell? Like, come on. No, that's not going to happen. There is no way that a 9-3 Big Ten team with such a friendly schedule is going to get in. Well, ask me how in the world Alabama got in the playoff last year with 9-3. Or I went, was it 9-3 or 10-3? I don't remember, but they got in with 3 losses. Explain that to me. Well, they had this sticker on the helmet. Same thing with all these other teams that snuck into the playoff the past couple years of the expanded playoff. That's just how it works now. So again, a 9-3 Penn State. Again, I know a lot of folks are going to say, "Man, with such a friendly schedule, wouldn't that be like the opposite? Wouldn't that be like a more of a detriment to Penn State to get in the playoff if they lose those 3 games or toughest games of the year, more likely?" Well, yes, but again, because of the expanded playoff, there is a more wider safety net, as they say. So a 9-3 Penn State losing those games, especially if they're very competitive, they're in the playoff. I know a lot of folks, again, the southeastern part of the country, whether you're in the ACC or especially the SEC, I'm sorry, Penn State 9-3 will probably be in the playoff. Unless other circumstances are, there, and have to, of course, have to see what the SEC shakes out to be, and you see what the Big 12 looks like. I don't think there really matters here. So, yeah, really, it's really the SEC. How does that look like? If it works out to a way where a Penn State 9-3 is in the discussion by the time we get to conference championship week, then yes, Penn State will be in the college football playoff. You can whine and scream and start a riot and, break your TV and threaten to burn your house down and whatnot. You can say all that. You can yell all night. A 9-3 Penn State, if the conditions are correct, especially with the SEC, if there's a lot of, cannibalization, I think a 9-3 Penn State will be in the playoff. So, again, if you're on Spotify, we'll read this off again. Penn State's best case scenario, 10-2. Worst case, 7-5. Most reasonable, 9-3. You guys can get mad at me in the comments section, but it's not just me saying it. We have Josh Pate saying it. The guys on Cover 3 have been saying it as well. Penn State's schedule is very, very friendly. And with Matt Campbell being there and them having, bringing us free, yes, I get it. It is Iowa State. And I know a lot of folks in the Big Ten go, Iowa State, go. Nah, they're not nothing to write home about. Well, then explain to me why in the world Matt Campbell had like 5 or 4 of like the best years in Iowa State football history. So is that like by accident? Like is that like was that not supposed to happen or something? Like I think Matt Campbell's a very good head coach. Okay, and I think out of all the replacements, he could have gone for James Franklin. Who look, I totally did not like the fact that they fired James Franklin. Okay, I know it sounds like I'm defending him. It sounds like I'm being a fan for him. It sounds like I'm sucking up to him. Well, look, he's not paying me any money. I'm not a Big Ten show or anything. But out of all the replacements from you guys, I think wrongfully firing James Franklin, Matt Campbell is the best option. Was the best option you could have gone. Okay, I know there was all the stuff about Kalani Sitake and that mystery candidate who I still kind of believe it was going to be Cliff Kingsbury. I know a lot of folks laugh at it, but they're just seeing. I don't know. That to me was not out of the realm of possibility. Okay, but it turns out, of course, the mystery candidate was Kalani Sitake. But anyway. I mean, look, Kalani can have been a good hire, sure. Does it kind of feel sort of Brian Harsin-ish when he, Brian Harsin was hired at Auburn? Yeah, kind of. But I think Mike Campbell, given again the fact that he was hired, he was at Iowa State, he had like 5 or 4 of the best years in that school's history. That doesn't happen by accident. Okay, I know a lot of folks say, "Oh, he just got lucky because it's the Big 12 and they're a non-competitive league." Yeah, that might be true, but Iowa State football before he got there, when was the last time they're relevant? Like what? The time they beat number 2 Oklahoma State back in 2011? Like that was the last time a lot of folks probably heard of Iowa State football. Okay, so that was like 15 years ago. So don't tell me that, oh, Matt Campbell, he was at Iowa State, that loathsome program. Again, explain to me how in the world he has 4 of the 5, like 4 or 5 best years in Iowa State football history. So is that a freaking accident, or is that just a good coach? I tend to believe he's a good coach. So I think that this is a good hire for them. The coaching staff there is pretty good. Bringing in the Anton Lynn, stealing him from USC, I think is a big deal. So Penn State, again, a lot of folks saying that does sound like kind of like the Florida thing last year. It does sound like, oh, you're falling forward again, Josh. You're falling forward again, Penn State. You're kitching your wagon to them once again. I know it does sound like that. I understand that. Sam sort of like the Florida thing, but much like Florida, their schedules, both their schedules, Penn State and Florida's schedules, are very, very friendly. When we eventually do the Florida record projection, do not be surprised if it looks very similar to this. Do not be surprised if it looks very similar to this. Then actually, I'll go and spoil it. It probably is going to. So get mad at me in the comics, call me an idiot, call me a shill for the SEC and the Big Ten. But again, just look at the data, look at the facts. Okay, and I think Penn State this year, there's a real good chance they'll be a playoff team this year. Again, it's not my fault for saying this. If Penn State screw this up, if they end up screwing this up with a very, very friendly schedule, then I tell Mike Campbell for not taking advantage of it. That I will blame for that. But you can't blame me for saying, look at this schedule and going, it's a very friendly schedule. And again, I know a lot of the folks out there on the internet and whatnot go, bro, what are you talking about, bro? Like Penn State, they lost all their talent. All their players are either at Virginia Tech or they're over in the NFL now. Well, that might be true, but again, like I just don't think these folks get it, man. I think a lot of these folks are just, I get it. Some of it's funny banter and whatnot, but literally, I just don't know if these guys get it. Again, you're entitled to your own opinions. That's your First Amendment right and whatnot. That's the constitutional right. But I just don't get it. The fact that a lot of folks don't see this Penn State schedule and Florida schedule and go, yeah, there's a real chance they can go 9-3. And it's like I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Look, maybe I'm falling for it again, and who knows? We get some more water real quick, and then we'll move on to this college football playoff expansion news, and then we'll wrap up the show. Again, for those of you guys who are watching live, thank you so much for tuning in. And same on Spotify, too. You guys are checking in over there. Make sure you subscribe to that podcast feed. Again, we will be doing our extra pod more than likely tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll do it tomorrow. I know there's some somewhat scheduled conflicts going on, but I think we should be okay, especially around the afternoon time, so we should be okay to go there. Let's see. Let me get back to my burp there from drinking all that water. That's not the wrong one. That's the wrong one I wanted. Okay, here is the back to my notes here. College football expansion. Yeah, so let me be honest with you guys. I'm getting very tired of talking about this, but we have to talk about it because I know a lot of you guys are going to say, "Why aren't you talking about it?" Well, okay, we'll talk about it. And look, I know it sounds like old man Leone on clouds here, but I've already made my objections to this 24th playoff thing. I think it's total crap. Okay, I've already voiced my opinions on it. I've already disclosed why I don't want it. I've already disclosed why this is happening. Again, sort of using the same logic Josh Pate uses. It's the ATM, right? Print off that money. Got to make the oligarchs and all of the TV Mongols happy, right? Got to make them more money. Even though while us, the college football fans and the players, and in some cases the coaches, though it sounds like the coaches are turning on us, but for the fans, the players, we're not seeing those, results. We're not reaping the rewards of getting billions and trillions and quadrillions of dollars. Like we're not getting that. We're not seeing that. Yeah, sure, we're getting more football, but just because you're getting more of something doesn't mean it's always a good thing, right? There's the thing that Josh Pitt brings up a whole lot. It's the it's the law of scarcity. Okay, right? It's the whole thing where if you saturate the market of something, the thing isn't necessarily unique anymore, right? I mean, you see this with a lot of things, like whether it's money or whether it's like a certain item or whatever. Like for example, I don't think I brought this up before. Of course, you guys know I'm a big Star Wars fan, but also as a Star Wars fan, I collect the Lego sets, right? The memorabilia, merchandise, and whatnot. And it's sort of like in the Lego community, they have certain rare items, and they're scarce, right? They're sort of like the white whale, right? And you have more of something like a certain Lego set or a figure and whatnot. That's just saturating the market, and it makes that item less exclusive. So that's what's happening in college football with the playoff expanding. You're making those spots, the playoff spots, less and less exclusive, and you're just devaluing it. There's no more value to it anymore, okay? And again, all those rewards are going to the TV Mongols and the oligarchs. I know folks like Josh Pay won't say it because he's tied to a media partner with ESPN. I know Josh will say, well, I'm not technically, a member of ESPN, bro. I'm just a partner of them. He's an employee. That's just it. He's an employee. He goes on the shows, and the same thing with the Busting the Boys guys. Nothing wrong with them. I like those guys. They're Taylor Lewan and Will Compton. They're great, but it's just those guys can't say what I can say here because they are not employee. I'm not an ESPN employee. I'm not a CBS employee and whatnot. The money where this is all going to is the TV Mongols and the oligarchs. Okay, well that's just the fact. Okay, and those are the drivers behind this. Those are the folks who are wanting this to happen. And again, like I've said and what Josh Payne has said, they treat college football and I guess by extension the NCAA tournament too now, as you mentioned, because they're expanding too, because everyone else wants to expand too, along with college football. It's a freaking ATM. It just prints out money for them, and as long as they have access to that ATM, doesn't matter. So the thing that's came out yesterday, I listened to Brandon Marcello's video about this, and he did a long video. He was in the Orlando airport because I believe that was where the ACC was having their spring meetings, I believe. So the ACC and the Big Ten and others want to expand the playoff beyond 24 teams. Okay, I think that's pretty clear. I think Jim Phelps mentioned it. A lot of coaches in the ACC and the Big Ten, obviously, because I think they were the ones who proposed this 24-team mess to begin with. So they're all on board with it. Okay, but the only two people who are not fully on board with it is the SEC. At least Greg Sankey is not. Now, some of the coaches are on board with it, which is a shame, like Kirby Smart. When he was on with Josh Pate last week or a couple weeks ago, he's fully on board with it. And I think Josh was sort of caught off guard by it, along with myself. So it's clear the coaches want it, but Greg Sankey has said no, he does not want this to expand. So what is interesting, and I'll sort of echo what Brandon Marcello brought up yesterday on his video in the Orlando airport of all places, in the airport I've been to a lot. The SEC spring meetings this year is going to be very, very awkward. That Greg Sankey's going to have to say something. Either he is going to put his foot down and say, no, we don't want to expand. Because remember, the Big Ten, the SEC, the way it works now, I forget the actual details, but they somehow have like voting veto powers or some shit like that. But yeah, they have the ability to say yay or nay on the playoff expansion because they are the two biggest brands, at least the two biggest conferences represented by the two biggest TV contracts, right? So that's I actually think that is really the reason why they have at least power or at least leeway in the playoff decision because they are represented by the TV Mongols and the oligarchs, right? So those are the two big conferences. But so what Marcelo brought up is, yeah, the spring meetings in a couple weeks there, I believe in Destin, I believe, where they usually have them, or Panama City, I don't really remember. But in a few weeks now, when those happen around Memorial Day week, it's going to be very, very awkward for sure. Like Greg Sankey's going to make a decision here. Either he's going to put his foot down and say, no, we're not doing this. Or, okay, I will capitulate. We'll advocate it. I will advocate for a 2014 playoff begrudgingly, okay? Now, the other party, which is ironic, is actually ESPN who doesn't want it, right? How about that? The people who control the playoff don't want more playoff games. Now, there is a flavor to this, right? There's sort of a interesting conundrum here. While, yes, an expanded playoff would obviously benefit ESPN, at least in a perfect world, because they get more games. They have this thing on, lock and key in terms of controlling of the TV rights, even though it really should not be. At least I agree with Josh Pitt. It's kind of a shame that's only one network controlling it. Now, yes, folks will say, well, what about TNT, bro? Like TNT has games. those games on TNT are literally just ABC games. Okay, they just license ABC Disney license those games on the TNT. It's literally just it is basically the ABC camera crews, the ABC quality on TNT. That's all it is. I know when folks saw that, they went, "Oh, does this mean we'll get Ernie Johnson in the studio?" This is before he and those guys for the Inside the NBA guys went over. But like back to people were going, "Oh, does this mean we're getting like Kevin Harlan calling games?" Like I was like, "Guys, no, that's not how it works. It's literally just going to be an ABC level quality of broadcast on TNT. Just the branding and the network is different. Okay, like that didn't mean anything. It's literally just you may as well just put ABC instead of TNT on there. It's literally the same thing. Okay, like, it's not really that much different. It's ESPN graphics, the ESPN. It's literally just ESPN on TNT, and may as well just be ABC. Okay, so the problem is though, if ESPN were to do, if there were to be a 24 teams, ESPN actually runs into a problem here that would actually benefit us who want more diversity in the playoff media coverage. That it would make it to where other networks may have to get involved here. Okay, which sounds interesting. So that's the reason why ESPN does not want it. Which is not for the reasons why we don't want it. We don't want it because we don't want the regular season to be devalued. Okay, I think that's pretty clear, right? Josh Page made his argument for it. I've made my argument for it over the years. That's why ESPN's part of it. It's the typical oligarch TV Mongol talk. It's, well, we would love to expand the playoff. We'd love to have more inventory, but we can't actually expand it not because we want it for the interest of the fans or the players, for God's sake. It's for our interest. It's to not have us, license out more games and not just to TNT, because that's literally just, again, like I mentioned, the ABC broadcast on a different network. It's us potentially getting Fox involved, or heaven forbid CBS or NBC. God forbid that happens, but that's why we don't want it. It's not because you guys don't want it, the fans and the players to a certain extent probably. It's the TV Mongols and the oligarchs' interest, and it's for network and money relations, and it's the fact that we will have less access to the ATM, even though you're going to have, you still have the national title, so it doesn't matter. So the way I can put it here is that all the other conferences besides the SEC, mainly Greg Sankey, do want to go to a 2014 playoff. ESPN doesn't want to because they're doing it for their own interest, right? They don't want to have to play well with others, if you wanted to use the Iron Man quote from the first Avengers movie. So really kind of a weird dual reasoning for why folks don't want it. I still fall in the camp, obviously, of I don't want it, period, just because I don't want the regular season to be devalued. But because the fact that all of these TV networks and whatnot and the playoff committee doesn't do an actual focus group, which I've seen no one else bring up, the fact that they don't want, I don't think they have. And if they did, with actual college football fans, not influencers, not people like Josh Pate or the Bussin' the Boys guys or whatnot, nothing wrong with those guys. But at least folks like them, I'm not speaking for them. I'm not trying to get myself sued here, but I'm just saying people like that, influencers. We're talking about the fans here. If you're doing an actual focus group and get us, the fans, on there, sitting with you guys and actually listening to us and saying, hey, Cultural Playoff Committee, ESPN, this is why we don't want this to happen. We don't want the playoff to expand beyond 12 teams, okay? We don't want the regular season to be devalued. And we'll list our reasons why. Because if you add more of this, it's just going to make the regular season less. There's less urgency, and there's less of it now to a certain extent. But then again, the detractors and the playoff apologists will say, well, what are you talking about, bro? Like, you don't want more college football, bro? Like, what are you talking about, bro? It's like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about devaluing the regular season. So do I think this is actually going to happen? Yeah, it probably is, because how it's always worked, the TV Mongols and oligarchs will get their way. That's how it works. Again, like Josh Pate says, as long as they have access to that ATM, this is going to happen. Now, whether or not ESPN will bow down to the possibility of other networks getting their stuff, I mean, well, it is what it is. I mean, look, I guess from that standpoint, there is like a sort of a silver lining, but just the fact that that's their reasoning, it's kind of like, really, that's your reasoning. It's, oh no, we're going to lose access to the ATM. God forbid we have lose access to our moneymaker. Oh no. Anyway, I digress. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward here. Again, the SEC spring meetings are in a few weeks. Obviously, Greg Sankey is very staunch about his stance on not going beyond 12 teams. Look, I think it'll be interesting to see, will he put his foot down or will he not? We'll see. But that's probably the only one I really do wonder about. The other one with ESPN, it's like, okay, your reasoning is complete crap, and who really gives a shit? So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it does sound like the TV Mongols, the oligarchs, and the moneymakers will probably won't win out, even though they may suffer a little bit. Doesn't matter. They can cry all they want to and say, "Oh, you have no more access to the ATM," even though you guys still have a lot of access to it. So yeah, they may cry crocodile tears if this expands because they'll get Fox, NBC, and CBS involved, but we won't be shedding any tears. They will, just because they'll be losing. They'll have to license out more games to their precious playoff. So that's it for the show today. Bit of a weird, kind of a maddish tone to the show, but look, I hate playoff expansion much like anyone else. So the real fans, not the fake fans who are, of course, the oligarchs and TV Mongols out there who control the sport. So how they make decisions. Of course, they've been the reason why other decisions haven't made too. Florida State snub. But anyway, that's it for the show. Of course, we'll be back next week. Usual schedule. Extra pod tomorrow, more likely on the extra pod feed, which is the podcast feed. So on Spotify, make sure you subscribe over there. So until then, technically, but really until this weekend or after this weekend. So until then, take care, and we'll see you guys